Alrighty, let's get our birdhouse ready. So we've got our raw wood birdhouse, and what I'm going to do now is just apply a base coat of white paint. And yes, I'm working out of the jar, which I normally don't do, but it's down to the bottom. So I want to get, I don't have to pour it out. I'll probably lose more paint that way. And this is DIY. This is a clay-based paint. As you can see, it's got really, really good coverage. So we might not even have to do 2 coats. And if you find, especially when you have paint that's been around for a little while, like mine has, that it's thick, all you have to do is add some water to it, mix it really well, and you'll be good to go. Now for underneath, like right here, right underneath the eaves here, I am probably going to go grab an artist brush to get under there because I do want to make sure I've got a nice coat everywhere. Yeah, my paint's a little thick, but I hesitate thinning it out because it's giving me such nice coverage. So that's something that's really, really personal. And if your paint's too thin, I don't think I've ever had that happen to me. All you have to do is leave the top off and let it evaporate a little bit. Okay, so you get the drift here. I am going to paint the rest of this off camera. And I will, kind of evaluate. It looks really good. The coverage looks excellent. But when it dries, if I see some of this wood coming through, I'm going to apply a second coat. All right, you guys, I'll see you then. A good time to make your molds for your birdhouse is while the paint is drying. So here's a mold I'm going to be using. There's a million different iron orchid molds, and it's really just depending on what you want to do with your birdhouse. But I am using a laurel mold, and I'm going to be making a mold with this really pretty little bow here. So I have some cornstarch, a fluffy brush that I use just for this, and I'm going to dip it into my cornstarch and dust the inside of the mold so that the clay doesn't stick. You can also use these molds for cooking. Obviously, you want to keep a separate one for cooking and sugar making stuff, and one just for crafts, making things this way. All right, so here's my clay. And you want to kind of eyeball it and take out as much as you're going to need. Now, normally I have a, here's a tongue depressor I could use. It's got paint on it, but it's dry. You could use a tongue depressor, a credit card, your fingers to remove the excess mold. Clay from the mold. Okay, so I kind of warmed it up, created an oval, and then I'm just gonna press really well. Really press down so that you fill the mold with the air dry clay. And I kind of just push all the way around in the middle. And then to remove it, you can just kind of push it off like this. I'm just using my thumb. Which works really well. Another tool I like to use is the burnishing stick from the Transfers. Okay, put your excess clay with the other clay, and you gotta make sure you keep it really, really sealed, because as its name implies, it is air dry clay and it will start to dry out. To smooth the top, I've got my wood tongue depressor, and I'm just pushing the clay off. And there's just a little bit left here, but I want that to be nice and even. Okay, looks good. Now, the best part, removing your mold, I just turn it over and I kind of bend the mold, and you see what's happening. The clay is starting to come out. And you just kind of, I'm slipping around on my wax paper here, but you just kind of tease it out. And yep, mine ripped a little bit here. No worries, I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. So there's the mold. Beautiful, right? Now it did tear just a little bit, but we're gonna be gluing this down, so I'm not super worried. But while you're waiting for it to dry, I like to use a cookie cooling rack. You could put it down on wax paper, but that's not as good because it's not going to let the moisture dry. It's not going to let it evaporate. So you could put it down on maybe a paper towel, because that, you know, that's kind of bumpy. But a cookie cooling rack is a really good way to let these dry, even just a little bit, because it keeps them from warping. All right. Another option would be to put it down like on a drop cloth and turn it, you know, after half an hour, turn it so that the bottom of the mold evaporates as much as the top, and it will not cup as much. So we're not gonna wait for this to be 100% dry, but right now it's really floppy. So I'm gonna wait for about an hour, and it'll start to develop a crust that we could paint and use. Let's apply some Iron Orchid transfers now. I've started already. I'm using, I think it's called Malots or Malots. Malots. Let me show you the cover. It's really great. It's really, really nice. Malots pages. And there's lots of little images and things you can use. So I started with putting on a little mushroom cluster there, right? How sweet is that? And an update on the paint. This is just one coat, and I think it's fine. And now I think what I want to do is put a couple of butterflies. This transfer has everything, but let's get to the butterflies. All right. So I'm going to cut them out, and I always leave the back sheet, right? There's this sheet that the transfer is on, so we want to leave that on there. So now I'm just going to cut out this little blue butterfly or moth, I'm not sure. And let's pick out another one. And you have to think about size, right? We don't have a lot of space here. And in fact, I'm going to cut around this. I am going to cut out the name because I don't want to have that on here. So you see, then I can kind of place the butterfly. And let's get one that looks like it's just landing. Oh, I know what we'll do. Do the orange one. There's so many choices. And that's what's so much fun about this. All right, I didn't cut off his antennae. So let me get a little bit closer so I could put this one down. So and a good way, you know, to place them is to take your time. Take your time and decide where you want your butterflies. That looks really pretty. Okay, so once you do that, you take off the transfer from this sheet that it's on, and then you place where you want it, and you have something called a burnishing stick. This comes with the transfers, and you just burnish. There's little antennae. There's some really little fine areas of these images, so you do want to take your time with this also. And then I lift, and there it is. Isn't that beautiful? I give it a little rub with my finger to make sure it's really down. And now, I'm going to trim off. You can see where the butterfly's name is there. I'm going to trim that off. Being very, very careful. And I love the blue and the orange together. Okay, so place where you want it. And burnish that down. Being sure to get every little detail down. And then just lift that up. Look at how sweet that is. Again, I burnish extra with my finger. Let me just, okay. My iPad's acting strangely. So there it is. How sweet is that, right? Adorable. I am gonna end this. I might put some more on, you know, as you can really go crazy with these, right? But I'm gonna kind of look around, see where I could put them. But I have to remember too that I have molds, so I want to factor that into the final design. Okay, here is my little cookie cooling rack that I keep all of my molds on while they're drying. And these have been drying for a few hours. I did help it along a little bit with my blow dryer, but they're at that in-between point. These are not rock solid dry, so we have to be careful. But what I want to do now is paint the couple of molds that I'm going to be using, right? This is from the bird song mold. That's what it is. And of course the bow from the laurel mold. So I'm going to move the cookie rack over, put my molds down, and let's paint these. So I'm using an artist brush, and I want to use something that is soft. I don't want anything that's too stiff that's going to break the mold. So I'm just going to dip into the white paint that I painted. There's a birdhouse in, and I'm just going to quickly paint these. You could leave them just the white clay. I do that a lot. It looks like bisque, but I'm painting them this time because we're going to be doing something else to them. So I want to have a painted base. Just Go around. Don't get lost when you do white on white, and it's so easy to do that. You know, it's like, oh, I forgot a part. So you have to be a little organized as you move around. All right. Get all around the edge. And it's already drying because this is paper clay and it's very, very absorbent. All right, so we're going to do the same thing on our bird. And let me tell you from experience, this, out of all the IOD molds, it's so beautiful. But to me, this is the most delicate mold because of the feathers, the tail and the tips of the wings. So you just want to be careful with this. All right. Looks good. And now what I'm going to do, put my brush in some water, is I'm going to use the blow dryer to dry these. And kind of, I keep them moving a little bit so they don't stick from the paint on the paper. Now, if you have the luxury of time, it is best to let them air dry. I'm going to get a little bit closer for this next step. All right, so there's our bow, and here is our bird. And you see it's still flexible. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rub and buff. And this is called Gold Leaf. This is a wax that comes in a tube. This is not meant to wax pieces of furniture. It is to be used as an accent. I use it on hardware. I use it on projects like this. I absolutely love it. Now, make sure yours are dry. I'm pushing mine. In fact, I see a little bit of a wet spot. And then you can either use your finger like I'm gonna do, or you can grab like a little corner of cotton cloth like this. I could just cut out a piece. You don't wanna get all waxy. And then you can just wrap your finger in this and use this to kind of push on the wax. But I'm gonna take a little bit of this wax, put it down. Oops, let me put it where you guys can see it. Right, so there is, you can see that beautiful gold. And I'm gonna pick up a little bit after I close this, because we don't want it to dry out. I'm gonna pick up a little bit on my finger, and I'm just gonna brush the tops of the feathers and all the features of this mold. And the rub and buff, I carry a couple of colors, but it comes in so many different colors, and it's just so much fun. Right, so there is our bird, and I want to get his or her beak and head. And look at how pretty that is, isn't it? And if you look, you could see that wax, that beautiful gold wax reflecting. And again, you can go on as heavily as you want. I just thought this was perfect for our project. Let me grab my rag here and show you what I'm talking about. So here's the roof. And I'm going to actually bring the camera out a little bit now. So here's the roof of our little birdhouse. And I'm going to be gluing the bird down. And adding that rub and buff wax, it just stays with a kind of very delicate feel that we're going for, but look at how beautiful that is. Like you can really see the bird flying across the roof there. So let's quickly get our bow done. Same thing. And I do like using my finger, especially because my molds are not dry and I want to be careful that I'm not breaking them apart. Okay, so I'm going to wipe off my finger here. Now I'm going to show you how I glue on the molds. I love Tight Bond Quick and Thick glue. I love this glue. You can also use another glue I really love is Aleene's Tacky Glue. Really good. So I take my mold and just apply, come on glue, apply the glue. You don't need tons. Of course, now my glue doesn't want to come out. There we go. And I'm kind of keeping it towards the inside. So if it squishes, I don't get like that glue halo. I am really getting down to the bottom of this one. All right. There. Now, grab our roof, right? And then put the bird down. There it is, flying across the roof. And what I do is press the mold down, because remember, this is not 100% dry yet. And you can see it kind of moving around there. So I'm pressing it down. And if you do get a little bit of glue coming out, you can just grab a clean artist brush and just brush that away. Or later, probably what I'm going to do is just paint over it with a little bit of this paint, because I don't want to see that shiny glue. And I'm really going around and pressing along the edges because I want really good contact. Like that. Isn't that beautiful? I just love it. I love, love, love that look. It's just so sweet. This could be for any season. So now I'm going to continue and I'm going to put on the other mold, but I'm going to tell you this. If I were to stand this up like this and let it dry, that bird might glide down, right? It might slide. This glue sets up very, very quickly, just like the Aleene's, but I like to be what is it? More safe. I'd rather be safe than sorry, as they say. There you go. So what I do is I will put this, so this is, you know, even, right? But I'll lean it on something. I'll find something that I can kind of rest it on so that the bird is flat while it's drying. And usually 20 minutes drying time is fine, you know, for setting. It's not 100% dry yet, but 20 minutes is good. If you could just leave it and walk away for a few hours, that is best. But I'm going to leave that, and then I'll see you guys back here for the next step. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is finish this with some wax, but I just wanted to show you what I've done with the transfer pieces, the molds, right? So sweet. Such a sweet project. Here's the other little bird flying into some hydrangea. And I put the mushrooms all along the bottom and on the back. And I just think it's really sweet. What I want to do now is seal it. Now, as I said, mine is still wet. This should really be done 24 hours after you've gotten it to this point, and you just need to let it dry. So do as I say, not as I do, right? So I'm going to do this side because this is the first one that I glued down. So I've got my cardboard palette, and I'm using a little bit of black wax. Oh, and let me grab I really want some of my brown. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a mix here. So I've got dark brown DIY wax, black. You can kind of see that difference, but there's a big difference. And I love her brown wax because it's not too red. And I just was recently asked about a wax, an antiquing wax that doesn't have too much red in it. And this is a really good one. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is put out some clear wax here. I'm not going to put too much because, again, I'm only going to do one side as kind of a little demo, and then I'll finish the rest of it on my own when it's all dry, right? So I'm using just an old chip brush here, natural bristle. It's clean. And I'm going to put a slip coat of this clear wax onto my birdhouse. So I emulsify that wax into the brush. Now I'm going to be I'm going to apply this very gingerly, because remember, we put on gilding wax, and you could do the gilding wax after all of this too if you find that you're reactivating that. But I'm just going to brush on, being careful of that, my clear wax. Right. Okay. And then I'll put some down here. Get up underneath the eaves, down at the bottom. And if you don't want an antiqued look, this is good. You could just leave it, let it dry, and you're done. You don't need to do this part. Okay, now what I want to do is mix up a little bit of a custom wax color. So I'm going to put some of this brown down, right? And then just a tiny bit of the black, just to cool off the brown. But you could see here, there's the brown. It's a beautiful brown, and there's the black, okay? And let's cover these up because we don't want them to dry out. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit of the clear wax and mix these all together. And I do this so often, you know, I know the color that I'm looking for. Please experiment with this so that you don't, you know, get any surprises. But it's really fun to make your own custom colors. Okay, so I'm using the same brush. If you're going to do any more clear waxing, get another brush, right? Don't you use your clear wax brush for your clear wax and then go get another one for the colored waxes. All right, I'm just dipping just a little bit more clear wax and then into our color. Grab the project, and then I'm just gonna brush very, very lightly. And you see how very lightly I'm doing that. Just a little, just to give it a little bit of an antique look, right? And then I'm gonna do the bottom here. It's almost like I'm dry brushing. A little heavier under the eaves. Do a little bit along that bottom. And you see that really pretty antique look that you get. Right. Turn it over here. We'll do right along the side of the roof so you can compare. So there's the antique side and there's the plain side. So it adds just the right amount of antiquing. Now, if you find that you're like, oh my God, Jane, I don't like this. I did too much, right? Then what you can do, I'm just gonna, you know, I love wax and I just love to get in and kind of, you see me getting in around the bird. But because we put on that clear wax, we have a slip coat. So what you can do is get a little rag. I just grab this little piece of cotton cloth, right? And dip it into the clear wax, right? Just into the clear wax. And if I want to remove some of this, all I have to do, let's do this little corner right down here. I just have to go in with the clear wax, and the clear wax pulls up the antiquing wax, right? See that? So that's why I use a slip coat of clear wax. It's just a little bit of insurance in case I went crazy with the dark wax and I can pull it up. I'm gonna feather that out a little bit because I do want that dark wax in there. And you see I'm just kind of going around my bird. And it just gives it that little extra touch. So now it's done as far as you're concerned, right? But I am going to really wait for everything to dry, and then I'm going to apply my mixture to the entire piece, let that dry, and then it's ready to be displayed. I hope you had fun, and please share with me when you make one of these absolutely adorable little birdhouses. See you soon. Happy painting. I've got a little bug flying around.